Case File 006, the God King Paradox and the Suppression of Alexander's DNA. Alexander, the Great, a name synonymous with unstoppable power, with world-shaking conquest. But what if the history books, the official stories, have buried a deeper, darker truth? What if the impossible rise of this legendary figure was not merely human genius, but the manifestation of something far older, far more potent, lurking in his very bloodline? For centuries, we've been told a myth, a brilliant strategist, a daring leader, a man who bent the world to his will before his 33rd birthday. But the fragments of ancient texts, the hushed prophecies, they paint a different picture. They speak of a lineage not meant for mortals. They hint at a power too dangerous to comprehend, too significant to ignore. Imagine a truth so profound, so challenging to our very understanding of existence, that it had to be scrubbed from the records, suppressed, hidden. And what if Alexander the Great was the living, breathing key to that forgotten saga? Tonight, we peel back the layers of carefully constructed narratives. We look at the chilling evidence, and we dare to ask, was Alexander truly a man, or was he a descendant of something far more ancient? A hybrid, a king with the blood of giants flowing in his veins, a Nephilim. The unveiling of a forbidden birthright. The story begins not on a battlefield, but in a chamber heavy with mystery. It starts with a queen, Olympias. She was no ordinary royal consort. She was a woman steeped in the arcane, devoted to cults where serpents danced and divine madness took hold. Imagine her, in the quiet of her chambers, making a claim that would echo through history. Alexander, she insisted, was not sired by her husband, King Philip II. No, her son, her magnificent child, was born from Zeus himself, the god of thunder. A divine visitation, sometimes described as lightning, sometimes as a serpent entwined with her form. Think about that for a moment. A king accepting this story, or at least living with its unsettling implications. Philip, a hardened warrior, reportedly dreamed that he sealed Olympias' womb with a lion emblem. Interpreters talked about a fierce ruler to come. Another chilling vision. Philip saw himself placing a snake's shadow over his queen. To the ancient mind, these were not just dreams, these were omens, divine warnings, or perhaps divine promises. This wasn't just folklore. This was a narrative shaping a child's destiny. Olympias poured these ideas into Alexander's ear from his earliest days. He was not just a prince. He was the son of Zeus Ammon. His blood carried the very spark of immortality. He consumed these words. He built his identity around them. He saw himself as a second Achilles, a new Heracles, a hero born of gods, destined to transcend mortality itself. And then, the night of his birth, 356 BC, a fiery sign ripped through the heavens. The temple of Artemis in Ephesus, one of the 7 wonders of the world, was consumed by flame. No coincidence, declared the priests. As the goddess's temple burned, the future conqueror of Asia was born. Think of the psychological impact of such an event, such a confluence of omens. To the ancients, this was not just a king being born. This was a cosmic event, a chosen vessel marked for greatness, or perhaps marked by something far older, a hidden bloodline reaching back to beings both revered and feared. Olympias' claim of divine parentage resonated with deeper forbidden narratives, Zeus descending as a serpent. It's a motif that appears in countless ancient cultures, not just Greek myth, but older, more unsettling traditions. We find echoes in the Book of Enoch, in fragmented texts of Genesis. They speak of the Nephilim, those half-human, half-divine beings, the offspring of the Watchers, the fallen ones, and mortal women. They were mighty. They were conquerors, filled with an unnatural strength, an insatiable hunger for power. Their very existence was said to disrupt the balance of humanity. When Olympia spoke of lightning and serpent, was she merely invoking Zeus, or was she speaking a language of hybrid bloodlines, a language understood in occult circles? a lineage tied directly to the Watchers themselves, the very beings who bred the Nephilim. The mark of the hybrid king. Alexander's childhood was littered with signs that seemed to confirm his mother's incredible claims. At just 12 years old, he tamed Bucephalus, a wild, untamable horse. No other man could ride it, yet the boy Alexander did. Observers marveled. Divine favor, they cried. Seers declared this beast would carry him to world conquest. You heard that right. A young boy, effortlessly mastering a creature that defied all others. Is that merely skill, or is it something more? Something woven into his very being? Another legend. Seers approached him. They declared his face radiant like the sun. Think of the descriptions of demigods, of semi-divine heroes in both Greek and Near Eastern myths. His courage in battle games, his fierce hunger for knowledge, that raw, undeniable aura of authority, even as a child. All these convinced those around him. Olympias' words held true. This boy was not just gifted, he was marked. He was different. His tutor, the legendary philosopher Aristotle, further shaped Alexander's understanding of a cosmos filled with divine order. A hierarchy, mortals, heroes, gods. Alexander took it all in. He wasn't just a pawn of fate, he was its instrument. He was destined to rule. But more than that, he was destined to transcend. This hunger, this absolute conviction, it wasn't just ambition. It was the calling of his blood, the Nephilim, the Watchers. Their stories were known throughout the ancient world. The giants, the mighty men of old, their descendants were said to walk among us, not simply physically imposing, but imbued with an otherworldly strength, a profound desire for dominion. Could Alexander have been one of them? The idea is staggering. It makes you reconsider everything. His very existence and this conviction, born from myths and fiery omens, would drive him to conquer the known world. By the time Alexander became a man, his belief was unshakable. He wasn't merely a Macedonian prince, not just Philip's son. He was something more, a being touched by the divine, destined to rule the entire world. Olympias' words, Philip's unsettling dreams, the omens of his birth, the burning temple, all these laid the groundwork. On this foundation, Alexander built his identity. This belief fueled his conquests. It justified his insatiable thirst for forbidden knowledge. For Alexander, conquest was not just ambition, it was destiny, written in his very blood. The conquering god in ancient prophecies. In 336 BC, King Philip II was assassinated. A kingdom might have fractured, but Macedon did not. Alexander, barely 20 years old, seized the throne. He moved not as a hesitant prince, but as a conqueror already chosen by higher powers. In less than 2 years, he crushed rebellions throughout Greece. He leveled the proud city of Thebes, its walls demolished, its ashes sent as a chilling warning. This was not just political might. This echoed the destructive purges of mythic conquerors, as if Alexander sought to channel the wrath of gods themselves. With Greece secured, his gaze turned eastward. Persia, the greatest empire on earth. No mortal army had ever threatened it so profoundly. Yet Alexander's campaigns unfolded like prophecy made manifest. The gods themselves, it seemed, had paved his path. An encounter recorded by the Jewish historian Josephus deepens this mystery. As Alexander advanced toward Jerusalem, he was met not with resistance, but with reverence. The high priest came out. He bore the book of Daniel. Inside its pages lay a startling prophecy. A great king from the west would rise. He would destroy the Persian Empire. Alexander, reportedly, recognized himself in this vision. He bowed before the name of Yahweh. To him, this was no mere coincidence. It was confirmation. Even the God of Israel had written his name in the script of destiny. For a man already convinced of his divine lineage, this was fuel poured onto an already raging fire. Every prophecy, every omen seemed to echo one truth. Alexander was more than mortal. But it was in the sands of Egypt that his transformation from king to god was seemingly sealed. After conquering the Nile Valley with chilling ease, Alexander journeyed deep into the Libyan desert. His destination, the Oracle of Siwa. This was no ordinary pilgrimage. The oracle's priests were renowned. Their cryptic answers, their temple linked to the great god Ammon. The Greeks equated him with Zeus. When Alexander entered, the priests greeted him not as a mortal. They hailed him as the son of Ammon. Was it political flattery, a mystical ritual, or something unexplainable? Alexander left convinced. He had been acknowledged as divine. To his followers, this was either blasphemy or revelation. To Alexander, it was truth. He was born, not of Philip, but of the gods. From that day onward, Alexander demanded recognition of his godhood, in letters, in inscriptions, even in decrees. He pushed the title Son of Zeus Ammon. Was this pure arrogance, or a genuine reflection of something written into his very blood? This hunger for recognition, this absolute conviction in his own divinity. It wasn't just hubris, it was the instinct of one who sensed he was part of a greater narrative, perhaps even a cosmic war between bloodlines. Subscribe to this channel now. You're already here, deep into the forbidden archives. Don't miss the next unraveling of history. Hit that subscribe button and join our League of Truth Seekers. It's the least you can do for the secrets we're about to uncover. Every prophecy, every oracle, every conquest became another thread, a tapestry stretching back to ancient days, when the sons of heaven mingled with mortals. As he conquered, Alexander built more than empires. In Egypt, he founded Alexandria, a city that would become the cradle of forbidden wisdom. Its legendary library, established after his death, but conceived under his vision, was not simply an archive. It was a vault for secrets, gathering scrolls from every culture he subdued, from the Vedic traditions of India to the star maps of Babylon, from Egyptian temple texts to Greek philosophy. Alexander's obsession was not only land, it was knowledge. Why such an insatiable hunger for hidden lore? To the modern eye, it looks like curiosity, but when paired with his divine claims, it resembles something darker. The drive of one who knows he carries a hybrid bloodline, one who seeks to unlock the forgotten sciences of his ancestors, the Nephilim, the Watchers, the god kings who once walked among mortals. Perhaps Alexander sought not merely to rule mankind, he sought to unlock the lost sciences of his forebears, the wisdom of those ancient beings. Even his campaigns were filled with accounts that blur the line between fact and legend. In Persia, he pursued Darius III across impossible distances, moving armies faster than logistics should allow. In India, he faced war elephants and tribes described by his chroniclers as giants. Some sources hint at meetings with strange beings, men taller than any Greek, with voices like thunder. Were these simply exaggerations of frightened soldiers, or distorted memories of encounters with bloodlines carrying traces of something non-human? The guardians of ancient terrors. Alexander's empire stretched from Greece to the borders of India. His obsession with divine recognition only grew stronger. He forced cities to acknowledge him as a living god. He demanded his men bow in proskynesis, a ritual of worship usually reserved for the divine. To his generals, this was hubris. To Alexander, it was acknowledgement of truth. This wasn't just arrogance, it was hunger. The hunger of one who sensed he was part of a greater narrative, a cosmic war between bloodlines. Every prophecy, every oracle, every conquest became a thread, a tapestry stretching back to ancient days. When Alexander marched eastward, his conquests entered not only new lands, but the realm of legend, beyond the deserts of Persia and the mountains of Afghanistan. His story began to merge with humanity's oldest myths, tales of monstrous beings, forbidden bloodlines, apocalyptic visions, and in those stories, Alexander himself was more than a conqueror. He became a boundary keeper, a warden against forces too terrible to name. Centuries after his death, stories of Alexander were collected in what became known as the Alexander Romance, a sprawling body of literature blending history with myth. While historians dismiss much of it as medieval invention, the text preserves striking motifs tied to occult traditions. One of the most enduring legends: Alexander traveled to the edges of the earth. He sealed away two terrifying nations, Gog and Magog, behind a massive gate of iron. These nations, described as cannibalistic giants, monstrous tribes, descended from the corrupted bloodlines of the Watchers. Their release, according to prophecy, would herald the end of days. Whether myth or distorted memory, this tale places Alexander not only as a conqueror of nations, but as a cosmic gatekeeper, standing between humanity and the resurgence of Nephilim terror. The stories of Alexander encountering giants are not confined to the romances alone. Ancient chronicles of his campaigns in India speak of tribes, warriors who towered above ordinary men. Accounts describe them as men of enormous stature, their limbs thick as tree trunks. His soldiers, hardened by years of war, were unsettled by these figures. Were these simply exaggerations of exotic foes, or echoes of older traditions? Encounters with remnants of the Nephilim scattered across the earth? To Alexander, such encounters would not have been strange. Raised to believe himself half divine, every giant foe was further proof of the supernatural currents flowing beneath his conquests. The sealing of Gog and Magog resonates with multiple traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, they appear in Ezekiel's visions, nations that will rise against Israel in the final battle. In the Quran, they are monstrous peoples, released at the end of time. In medieval apocalypses, Alexander's gate stands, the only barrier holding them back. Why did so many cultures attach Alexander to this myth? Perhaps because his campaigns literally touched the edges of the known world, but perhaps also because he was seen as uniquely capable of fighting beings beyond human. His divine claim, his uncanny victories, his hunger for occult knowledge, these qualities painted him as more than a king. He was a bulwark against chaos itself. During Alexander's lifetime, Jewish priests preserved texts outside the Torah, the Book of Enoch among them. This forbidden scripture spoke of the Watchers, heavenly beings. They descended to earth, took mortal women, and fathered giants, the Nephilim. These giants were not only physically imposing, they were spiritually corrupt, teaching mankind sorcery, weaponcraft, hidden sciences. Alexander's encounters with Jewish priests, like the one in Jerusalem, may have exposed him to these traditions. Could Alexander, already obsessed with his divine parentage, have seen himself not just as a king fulfilling prophecy, but as a player in this ancient struggle? A struggle between humanity and the offspring of heaven. The vanishing of a demigod. Alexander's rise seemed unstoppable. He had marched from Greece to India, forging an empire greater than any the world had seen. Yet in 323 BC, at the height of his power, destiny betrayed him. What followed was not merely the end of a king. It was the beginning of a mystery that haunts history to this day, an enigma of illness, of immortality, and a tomb that utterly refuses to be found. In June of 323 BC, Alexander celebrated in Babylon. He planned his next great conquest, the Arabian Peninsula, perhaps even lands beyond. But at a banquet, after drinking heavily, he was struck by sudden illness. Over the next 12 days, his condition worsened. High fever, unbearable pain, weakness that spread through his body. He could barely speak. Some say he was poisoned, his enemies striking at last. Others argue it was malaria, typhoid, or some infection from the swamps of Mesopotamia. Yet none of these explanations fully satisfy, because what happened after his death defies every natural cause. According to multiple ancient sources, Alexander's body did not decompose. For 6 days after his death, lying unburied in the Babylonian heat, his corpse remained intact, fresh, lifelike. To the Greeks, this was unthinkable. Even the greatest generals and kings showed signs of decay within hours. But Alexander's flesh refused corruption. For his followers, this was no accident. It was a sign of divinity, proof that his blood was not entirely human. Others discussed darker theories, that he was not truly dead at all, but in some death-like trance, suspended between life and eternity. This phenomenon echoes ancient legends. Gilgamesh, whose body was preserved as if untouched by time, or the Nephilim, whose hybrid blood carried unnatural resilience. The generals could not agree on what to do with his remains. Eventually, they encased his body in a golden sarcophagus, fitting for a god-king. Plans were made to return it to Macedon, where his dynasty could enshrine him among his ancestors. But fate, or perhaps conspiracy, intervened. As the funeral procession moved westward, the casket was hijacked. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted generals, seized the body. He diverted it to Egypt. He claimed he wished to honor his king, but many believe there were deeper motives. To possess Alexander's body was to possess legitimacy, power, and perhaps something more, the secret of his bloodline. The body was taken first to Memphis, then eventually to Alexandria, the city Alexander himself had founded. There it was placed in a magnificent mausoleum, known as the Soma. For centuries, Roman emperors and travelers visited the tomb, gazing upon the preserved body of the greatest conqueror who had ever lived. Julius Caesar, Augustus, even Caligula were said to have looked upon his face. And then, silence. By the 4th century AD, all records of Alexander's tomb vanish. The Soma disappears from history. Its location lost. Was it destroyed, hidden, or deliberately erased? The question of Alexander's tomb remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Thousands of searches have scourged Alexandria, but no trace has ever been found. Some theories suggest it lies beneath the modern city, buried under layers of stone and sea. Others claim it was transported in secret, hidden by cults, knights, or secret societies, groups who recognized that Alexander's body was more than a relic. It was evidence of something forbidden. Medieval rumors even placed his tomb in places as distant as Constantinople, or beneath the Vatican itself. Knights Templar legends said that they guarded the remains of a demigod. Occult societies have hinted that the body was hidden to protect humanity from what might be discovered within his DNA. Was Alexander's blood so unique, so dangerous, that it had to be concealed from the world? The legacy of suppressed knowledge. The mystery of Alexander's body mirrors another legend, the tomb of Gilgamesh, the ancient Sumerian king. Many believe he was also of Nephilim descent. Like Alexander, Gilgamesh's remains were said to resist decay, and like Alexander, his tomb was lost to time, only to resurface in conspiracy theories of modern military expeditions. Could Alexander and Gilgamesh have shared the same bloodline? Could both have carried fragments of something not entirely human, passed down from the Watchers of old? If so, the disappearance of their tombs is no coincidence. It is suppression, a deliberate attempt to keep humanity from rediscovering its forbidden past. Why has Alexander's tomb remained hidden for over 600 years? Historians will say it is simple accident, the chaos of wars, earthquakes, the rise and fall of empires. But we know better. Conspiracy theorists argue otherwise. They claim governments, the Vatican, or secret brotherhoods. They know exactly where Alexander rests, that they guard his body not as history, but as power. For if Alexander truly carried Nephilim blood, then within his remains lies proof of a hybrid lineage, DNA that could confirm humanity's darkest myths, DNA that might reveal why his body resisted decay, DNA that could shatter our understanding of gods and men. And if such DNA still exists, who controls it, who protects it, or worse, who uses it? The Library of Alexandria, conceived in the city Alexander founded, it remains one of history's great tragedies, said to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls, Egyptian rituals, Babylonian astronomy, lost Greek texts, perhaps even forbidden Hebrew writings. It was destroyed in waves of fire and conquest, or so we are told. What if the library's destruction was not accident, but design? Some argue the texts were not burned, but hidden, smuggled into secret collections, guarded by elites. If true, then the wisdom Alexander sought to preserve, perhaps knowledge of the Watchers, the Nephilim, and his own lineage, is not lost at all. It is deliberately suppressed, the destruction of the library. It then becomes an act of concealment, not the loss of knowledge, but the hiding of it. If you're finding this unraveling of history electrifying, there's so much more to explore. We've compiled an entire playlist on esoteric knowledges and demonologies that delves into these hidden dimensions of history and ancient lore. You'll find the link in the pinned comment below. Consider this your next step down the rabbit hole. Conspiracy theorists argue that Alexander's lineage never died, that the god-kings of antiquity passed their blood to dynasties that still rule from the shadows. Royal families tracing their ancestry back to divine right. Elites who cling to bloodlines they claim are pure. Could the Nephilim bloodline still exist among the powerful today? When kings and emperors claim descent from gods, are these just myths or echoes of Alexander's own story? In this interpretation, Alexander is not a figure locked in the past. He is the model every ruler since has sought to replicate: conqueror, demigod, god-king. The question then is not whether Alexander's blood survives, but who holds it, and if those who guard it are shaping history even now. From pharaohs to Caesars, from medieval monarchs to modern cults of personality, the archetype of Alexander endures. The young conqueror, the half-divine ruler, the man who transcends humanity to become something greater. This pattern repeats because it speaks to a hidden truth. Deep within myth and memory lies the image of beings who were not wholly human, the Nephilim. Alexander, whether by myth or by blood, became the clearest embodiment of this archetype. His tomb may be gone, but the idea of him has never died. When secret societies talk about the hidden rulers, when conspiracy theorists speak of elites controlling destiny, Alexander stands at the root of that image. The hybrid king, the one who holds power beyond mortal reach. The greatest mystery remains: his vanished tomb. Why has it never been found? Why do searches, even with modern technology, fail? Perhaps it lies under Alexandria's ruins, swallowed by the sea. Perhaps it was spirited away by Ptolemy's descendants. Or perhaps it is known, hidden, guarded, protected, because those who control the tomb control history itself. For if Alexander's body is discovered, if his DNA reveals traces of something other than human, then the entire foundation of history, religion, science, it would all be shaken to its core. Governments, churches, secret societies, all have motive to ensure it never sees the light of day. In the end, Alexander's legacy is more than conquest. It is secrecy. It is the chilling suggestion that our greatest heroes may have been more than men, that forbidden bloodlines shaped history, and that the truth remains hidden by those who fear what it would unleash. The myth of Alexander has become a blueprint for power. The God King, the hybrid conqueror, the immortal whose tomb must remain concealed. Was he merely a brilliant general, gifted with strategy beyond his years? Or was he something more, the last of the Nephilim? A hybrid whose blood carried secrets that empires and secret societies have fought to conceal for centuries. His life reads like prophecy, his death like ritual, and his missing tomb remains the greatest unsolved riddle of antiquity. And so, we are left with a choice. Do we see Alexander as only a man? Or do we admit the possibility that his bloodline still runs in shadows today, shaping the destiny of nations? If you've ever felt a pull to unravel the deeper mysteries of our world, if you suspect there's more to our history than the textbooks admit, tell us, what do you believe Alexander truly was? Share your thoughts, your theories, your deepest suspicions in the comments below. Let's unearth these truths together.